In a small compound in Oyo, the doors are so close that neighbors can smell each other's cooking and hear each other's concerns. Life here follows a simple routine: fetching water in the morning, children playing and laughing in the hallways. It's a place where everyone knows each other, what you cook, when your gas finishes, and the little details of your life. For a long time, room 12 was quiet. It used to belong to a lively woman who cooked in the hallway and laughed loud enough to iron sad days flat. But she left, and for months the door stayed shut. Dust settled on the windowsill. Then, one hot afternoon, a taxi stopped by the gate. Madame Bella and her son stepped out of the car, wearing a plain dress and a face that looked like a closed gate. She carried a cooler, a big duffel bag, and a smaller bag with metal clinking inside. She did not wave. She did not smile. She marched down the corridor like someone walking through a bad memory. "That must be the new tenant," said Chuka, the shopkeeper, leaning on his doorway with arms folded. "Room 12," murmured retired Mr. Obi, who had lived there long enough to remember the building's first coat of paint. "Let's see how she fits." Miss Amaka from room 1 stepped out and offered a warm nod. She had lived there for more than 20 years. She had a way of solving small problems before they grew teeth. "Welcome," she said, but her voice did not meet an answer. The woman, later introduced by a rent receipt as Mrs. Bella, unlocked room 12, slipped inside with her son, and then came back out with a padlock. She shut the door, clicked the lock once, twice, 3 times. She checked it again, like a person fighting an enemy nobody else could see. "Hmm," said Chuka under his breath. "This one did not come to live with us. She came to quarantine herself." The corridor swallowed the words. Evening fell. A radio somewhere played old high life. Children chased each other with plastic cups. From behind the door of room 12, no sound escaped. In the morning, when the sky was a pale blue and the compound neighbors formed a line by the tap, Madame Bella appeared. She tied her wrapper and stood with her arms folded. The others greeted her with nods, like people meeting a cat that might scratch. Miss Amaka, who had tied her wrapper with a practiced tug, smiled at the newcomer. "Good morning. Please, can I borrow a little salt? Just a pinch. My stew is almost done." Bella did not return the smile. Her face stiffened as if someone had asked for her birthright. "I don't lend or borrow," she said. "I keep my things to myself." "It's just salt," said Amaka gently, already turning to go, not wanting trouble. But Bella did not let it go. She added, "First, it's salt. Then, next time, you will want me to raise your children for you." The small line at the tap went quiet. Water dripped into buckets with tiny taps of sound. Mr. Obi sighed and looked at his slippers. Chuka raised his eyebrows and muttered, "Oh, the egwu." Word travels fast where walls are thin. By afternoon, people had words for the new woman. Some said proud, some said strange. Mr. Obi said, "She's like a rubber tree. Touch her, and she will bounce you back." By evening, a name stuck: "Madame, keep your own." Life in the compound has its own way of testing people. When the electricity went out that week because the collective bill was not paid, most of them came out to complain together, hands on heads, voices tired. Someone made a short list: who will pay how much, who will collect money, who will go to the office. Madame Bella just said, through her closed door, "I don't share power, I use prepaid." And she kept her generator inside, low and steady, like a private heartbeat. When water ran out, because the borehole was slow, people cooled with their drums and fetched from the big communal barrels. Madame Bella bought bottled water instead and locked her door. When she cooked, she closed the windows and sealed the door so tightly nothing escaped. Not pepper smell, not smoke, not warmth. The corridor heard only the dull click of her lock. Her son Jide tried at first. He stood in the yard with other children, watching their games with hungry eyes. He had a sharp little face and quick feet. He liked to laugh, but the laugh did not come easily in that place. Come, called Chika, a boy with a loose tooth and a fast mouth. We're playing police and thief. Jid stepped forward, and Chika handed him a stick that could replace a gun for their game. His mother's door opened with a sharp sound. Jide, she called, come here. He went to her without protest. She knelt and wiped invisible dust from his cheek. Don't mingle with those children. You don't know what they are up to. He looked back at the yard. The others watched him in a small silence. Later, trying to make sense of it and maybe to explain himself, Jadi told Chika, my mom says you people are too local and you like to take things for free. It is hard to unhear a sentence like that. It spread through the compound the way smoke seeps under a door. Madam, keep your own, people said, half amused, half angered. She didn't just lock her door, she locked her spirit. Days grew longer as the house settled around the new rhythm, her distance, their distance. If her clothes got soaked on the line by sudden rain, no one called out. If she left a burner high, no one knocked to warn. People started to walk past her with their eyes turned somewhere else. Children learned to avoid Jade's eyes when he hovered near the edges of their games. You see, Madame Bella told herself in the room, this is why we keep to ourselves. One Sunday, when Amaka's matches ran out and gas refused to light, Amaka went to Madame Bella's door and knocked. When the door opened, Amaka smiled the way she always did. Please, can I borrow a lighter? I'll return it now. Now. Bella looked up and down the corridor as if enemies hid behind buckets. I don't share fire, she said. Everyone should have their own. The door closed. The bolt slid. Later that evening, the neighbors sat outside with their chairs to enjoy the evening breeze. Amanda said, that woman Enne, very greedy. Chuka laughed and added his own pepper. She didn't come to live with us. She came to quarantine herself, abeg Mr. Obi, who preferred calm, used the word unnatural. He sat on his stool, fanning himself with an old newspaper. People are not rocks. Community is life. She is making herself a stone. One day Madame Bella strutted through the corridor while one of the children had left a wet patch near a plastic basin. Her sandals slid, her body jerked. She hit the floor with a heavy thump and a small cry that surprised even her. This compound is cursed, she shouted, a hand on her hip, pain fresh. Her neighbors opened the doors, but they did not move. They only watched. Some muttered from inside, sorry, oh, while some laughed, but it floated like a feather. Slowly, people withdrew into their rooms, the way snails pull into shells. She got up by herself. She dusted her dress. She limped to room 12, eyes bright with anger, and clicked the lock 3 times. Weeks turned to months. A map of lines drew itself across the compound. Normal people here, with Madame Bella there. But truth be told, almost nobody was with Madame Bella. She stood alone. Even Jid, who used to linger outside like a kite hoping for wind, learned to stay inside with his books or sit on the stair pretending not to miss the noise. One day, Slim Nancy from room 10, whose lashes could sweep the corridor if she blinked hard, she knocked lightly. When the door opened and Madame Bella came out looking angry, she asked to borrow a single clothes peg. She said her own had dropped into the gutter and the wind did not respect wet brass. I don't lend pegs. People forget small things. They never return them. Nancy stared at the door, head tilted. Ah, a single peg? Okay. She laughed without humor and walked away, one hand across her chest, holding fabric in place. That was the last straw for some people. Without a meeting, the compound formed a circle of complaint in the soft shade by the entrance. Not everyone spoke, but everyone listened. She is too proud, said Amaka, voice low but firm. Quiet is fine. Pride is not. She's selfish, said Slim Nancy, who could drop a funny line like a bead into a bowl. She thinks she is better than all of us. Even Satan borrows salt in hell. People laughed because the picture was funny and also because truth tastes better with laughter. They did not agree on what to do, not in words, but their hearts had already moved. If she asked for anything, they would pretend not to hear. If she greeted, they would let the greeting fall to the floor and roll away. If she needed help, they would stay still, not out of cruelty, but out of a kind of lesson. The lesson began small. One morning Madame Bella's drum was empty. She stepped out with a big pot to rinse. She went to the tap, but there was no water. Looked up and saw slim Nancy sitting by her door, scrolling on her phone. Nancy, Bella said, please, can I borrow a little water? Just to rinse these pots. Nancy looked up with a sweet smile. Sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say? Water. Just small Nancy tucked her phone away. Ah, you know I've got a spiritual dog now. It's invisible and it drinks plenty of water. And today it is very thirsty. She smiled again, pleasant as a radio jingle. Madame Bella's face tightened. She carried her pot and Nancy laughed as she watched her go. Later, her small generator coughed, sputtered, and died. But she really wanted to power her phone. Frustrated, she knocked on Uncle Chika's door, a wiry man who fixed things and had a shelf full of tools. Please, she said, can I borrow your power bank for a few minutes? I need to power my phone and make a quick call. He raised an eyebrow. I've been warned not to share power, he said, glancing at the device like it might bite him. They said I shouldn't give it to anyone who is not on the registry. What registry? She asked, eyes narrowed. The registry of people who share, he said calmly, and closed his door and clicked 3 times to mimic her pattern. Sometimes life gives back what you hand it, but with interest. The compound was simply doing what she had taught them. Still, it stung. The worst came on a wet afternoon when soap water spread across the corridor from a basin someone had kicked. Jid, running inside from the rain, slipped. He went down hard and burst into tears, loud and shocked. Bella came out in a panic, saw him on the floor, and went door to door begging for a towel, then a hand, then anything. Please, help me, she said to the first door. Silence. To the next. Please, he is hurt. Footsteps stirred behind wood, but no latch lifted. She knocked on Amaka's door, and she peeped but didn't open her door. The lesson had become a wall. It was a painful sight, a mother scrambling for kindness and finding only echoes. Slim Nancy passed by, an umbrella balanced on her shoulder like a question mark. She paused, looked at the boy and the mother, and said softly, sometimes it's not pepper or seasoning we need. It's just a little kindness. She did not say it to humiliate. The words were plain, almost gentle, and for the first time Madame Bella's face shifted. Something softened. Something broke. She did not fight back with words. She carried her boy inside with shaking hands. The corridor took a long, sad breath. Days followed. Madame Bella had stepped out to sweep, and Jide had been doing homework inside. Then the wind came with a child's mischief and banged the door shut. The key hung on the hook inside. The spare key, which she kept in a small metal bowl, was empty. She had moved it and forgotten where. Jide! Madame Bella called, still sweeping. Open the door. Mommy? Came his muffled voice. It's locked. Use the key. I can't find it. Her heartbeat rose like water in a pot. She knocked. Check near the stove. I checked. Under the mat. Not there. She felt the first tremor of fear run through her arms. She tried to force the door. It held, Our hands went to different doors in the corridor without thinking, as fast as a bird looking for a place to land. Please, she said, somebody help me. My child is locked inside. A few faces appeared at the windows. Nobody moved. The old lesson still held them, like wet cloth holding sand. It is not easy to drop a grudge you have carried for months. She knocked on Mr. Obi's door. He opened it a little and then closed it again. But he saw her eyes. They were not proud eyes anymore. They were a mother's eyes, all ache and fear, no pride left in them. Biko, she said, please. He did not move, not yet. She ran to Slim Nancy's door and pounded. Help me, she said. Please. The door opened. Nancy stepped out with a small set of keys, keys from an old landlord who used to keep duplicates. She looked at Madame Bella for a long second. Maybe she thought about the peg. Maybe she thought about water. Maybe she thought about the sentence even Satan would find funny. Then she said, move back. She knelt, tried one key, then another, then a third. On the fourth, the lock turned with a sound that felt like a throat clearing before a hard truth. The door opened. Jit stood inside with wide eyes and tiny hands clenched in front of him. Madame Bella pulled him to her, squeezed him so tightly he squeaked, then checked his face, his arms, his legs. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. Thank you, she said to Nancy. She did not deliver it like a receipt. She said it like a new word she had learned to pronounce. Other doors had opened during the noise. Chuka leaned in the corridor, watching. Mr. Obi stood with his hand on his back. Amaka came with a towel, half hopeful, half cautious. Madame Bella looked at them, then at the ground, then back. For the first time since she had come to room 12, she let her voice be small. I am sorry, she said. The words were plain and heavy. I have been proud. I thought I was protecting myself. I see now I was only building a prison. Amaka stepped forward first. She put the towel on Jide's shoulders. It's okay, she said. We all learn. Some lessons are hot, Mr. Obi nodded, like a judge announcing an easy sentence. Community is for sharing both water and worry. Chuka grinned and couldn't help himself. Welcome to quarantine-free living, he said. No face mask required. Laughter rose, small and warm, the kind that melts a hard place. Slim Nancy raised her chin and added, with a little smile to soften the sting of memory, next time, if you need a peg, just ask. That evening the sun settled, and the white bulbs outside the rooms glowed faintly as the generator hummed through the compound. Chairs came out, people sat, the children ran again. Radio music drifted in and out. Madame Bella stepped out with a small bowl. She went to room 1 and knocked. When Amakai opened, Madame Bella held out the bowl. Inside lay a half-full bag of salt. For you, she said, or for anyone who needs it. Amaka blinked, surprised and pleased. Thank you. She skimmed a little pinch into her palm because that's how you begin again. Small, simple, without ceremony. She called in the corridor. If you need salt, come. People came, one after another, with little jokes, small grins, and the kind of soft teasing that is really an outstretched hand. The children clustered around Jid again. Chika tugged his sleeve. Police and thief, he said. You'll be the police this time. Jide looked at his mother. Her face said yes. He ran off. Days after, the compound changed in ways so ordinary you could miss them if you weren't watching. In the morning, Madame Bella joined the line at the tap, and when someone's bucket toppled, she reached to help steady it. When she cooked, she left the window a little open, and a warm smell spread, enough to make anyone hungry. When rain started, Chuka shouted, Madame Bella, your clothes, and Bella's hands flew to gather them with a smile. She laughed. and her laugh surprised her. It sounded like a person who had put down a heavy bag. She started giving small things without being asked. An onion to a widow whose market profits had been swallowed by transport, a spare lighter to Amaka before her gas dries. And slowly, like a stubborn tap that finally clears, the compound flowed. One evening, Mr. Obi heard a soft knock on his door. Bella stood at the door holding a plastic chair. Sir, she said respectfully, because the old man liked respect more than sugar. Do you want to sit outside? The breeze is good. Mr. Obi smiled and came out with his newspaper. Thank you, he said. My legs are too stiff to fight for a seat. They sat together, not close, but not far, looking at the sky turned dark. He told her about the year the borehole broke and they fetched from the stream at the back. She told him about a town where everybody minded their business and how quiet had felt safe then but empty later. I was alone for too long, she admitted softly. I thought people wanted to take. I forgot people also give. The next Sunday, the compound had something like a small gathering. Not a meeting, not a party. Someone brought puff puff from the junction. Someone brought zobo cold enough to make teeth ache. Someone brought a stool for the child who was too short to see the top of the table. No one called it anything, but everybody came. Room 12, said Slim Nancy, raising a cup. To new friends. Bella raised hers too, a shy curve in her mouth. To kindness, she said. The kind you give and the kind you receive. Chuka cleared his throat the way people do when they will say something half serious. And to salt, he added, because apparently salt is the root of all communities. Everyone laughed. She started keeping a small jar on her counter labeled neighbor stuff. It held matchboxes, pegs, a spare phone charger, a roll of thread, a lighter, and a folded card with names and numbers for emergencies. She could reach into it when anyone knocked. Sometimes people return things. Sometimes they forget. She discovered it was okay to forget and be forgotten in small ways. Once, when the electricity failed again, and the woman in room 7 was stuck halfway up the stairs with a heavy sack of gari, Madame Bella reached for the bottom of the load without words. Together they climbed, step by step. Another time, Chika fell and scraped his knee. She cleaned it with salt water, and the boy hissed at the sting. Salt is medicine too, she told him. On a Sunday afternoon a month later, the compound formed its usual scattered circle under the soft shade. Conversation moved in lazy loops. Someone complained about mosquitoes. Amaka turned to Madame Bella and said, How is the compound treating you now? Bella looked around and smiled. It is treating me with kindness, she said, because I started treating it with kindness too. This tale teaches us that kindness is never wasted. It is the seed that grows into trust, friendship, and community. Guarding yourself too tightly may feel safe, but it can also keep you isolated. We all carry our own burdens and walls, but sometimes the bravest thing we can do is knock on someone else's door and ask. True strength often comes from opening your heart, asking for help when you need it, and offering help when others do. It's also the most powerful way to heal, to connect, and to be truly seen. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you can join us for more heartwarming stories.